Well, thank you, Paige. Looks like we have a great audience today with us from all across the country. Now, you've all heard the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. For years, managers, attorneys, accountants, bankers, and reserve study professionals alike have been telling boards to get a reserve study and adequately fund their reserves. But looking across the country, the majority of boards don't fund reserves adequately. They continue to nod their heads and convince themselves that the future is not their problem, or it's just too expensive to do it. Now, these are the same people who are able to change the oil in their cars to keep them running well. They know when to replace their tires when they get old and worn out before they blow out. But somehow, magically, they think their association can last for a long time without providing the care it needs. So we try to blend these two worlds together here in this webinar presentation. So today's presentation, Funding Reserves and What Happens with you when you don't, we tackle the challenge of helping you and your owners understand that the future is created based on the decisions or indecisions you make today. Things are deteriorating and you need to take care of them and take ongoing management responsibility for what's going on at your association. There's consequences regarding the decisions that you make. Well, this is the outline we'll follow in today's program. An important question is, can we see that future well enough to really care about it and then plan for it? And that's important because it's usually the first excuse for not funding reserves. We don't really know what's going to happen, so how can we really plan? In this section of the program, I'll share that I believe we all can see the future. We don't need a crystal ball. We don't need a magician by our side. And there's no sleight of hand. And let me explain that. To get to an appointment on time or prepare for an event, like preparing for today's webinar, you need to plan in advance. Get yourself into a quiet room, get the link, and that takes a few minutes of time. Now, when you leave your house 20 minutes before you need to be at a dinner event, and it's a 20-minute drive, that's okay, until you realize you need to stop and get some gas, and you need to hunt for parking at the destination. So as you're in your driveway 20 minutes before the event, you can realize, gee, I can see the future. I am going to be late. Okay? So in many areas of our life, we can see the future. I want to encourage you to think that. So let me show how this applies to managers, boards, and everyone who's involved in the community association industry. All right, well, it starts with perspective. It's easy to see the things that are right in front of us. That's our reality. You can reach out and touch the tree in your backyard. You can touch that trunk. You can feel the texture of it. And you can enjoy seeing its leaves this time of year change in color. But that same backyard tree looks different when you compare it to a forest over the fence, perhaps past the edge of town. That same big tree starts to look small and somewhat insignificant compared to an entire forest worth of trees. That's perspective. Now, while your backyard tree is very real and you can still reach out and touch it, you realize there's a whole lot more out there beyond touching distance. And if you look even further, you realize that the forest ends at the base of a big mountain range. You might be able to see just the tops of the mountains, not the rocks, not feel the snow crunch under your feet, and not hear the water that's melting. But it is still as real as that single tree in your backyard. And the point is that distant things are there. They're real. And they don't go away just if you tend to focus on the things up close. Those distant things are still there. So let's talk about how this applies to us and a mid-rise condo. Okay? For a person with an untrained eye, it's easy to see those near-term things pretty clearly. You can see that the trim paint looks good, or if it's dry and flaky. You can reach out and touch the carpet. You can see how it's worn. Maybe it is matted. Maybe it's frayed a little bit at the seams. And you can see that the asphalt is smooth or full of potholes. You can feel that when you drive over it. Those things are patently obvious, those near-term things. Now, turn the page, and that same untrained person may not see so clearly or know so clearly if the fence is in good shape or poor shape, or if the entry system is new or aged. Those are still a few years away, and their telltales are not quite so obvious. So you could say that their mid-range opinions are a bit gray or fuzzy. They understand them in concept, but they're wondering about the details. And then, take it one step further, the untrained eye will likely not even have an opinion about things even further into the future. Some of the long-range projects like elevator modernization, or maybe some other major mechanical issues, roof systems, things like that. It's just not in their skill set. They know it's out there, but they just don't understand the details. They can't feel those details. But remember that if you turn to someone who is an experienced eye, like a manager or someone with a construction background, if they see those same mid-range things, now they're pretty clear. They know about those mid-range items, and from their point of view, they know enough about the long-range components to be able to kind of reach out and say, I may not know, but I know someone who can tell me what condition they're in. So we're getting a little more knowledgeable, and then we take it one step further. Now let's go to the expert eye perspective. And that may be someone like a reserve A professional, someone who looks at building elements on almost a daily basis. Even the long-range items are clear to them. They think, no problem, I know what I'm seeing, I got this. So the role of the untrained eye is played by the board member or the homeowner. And while their job may be to make decisions about the property, making observations about the property is not their strength. Mid-range observations are commonly influenced by managers. They see properties on a regular basis and hear about them as part of their job, rubbing elbows with other managers, sharing best practices, stories about the different associations that they manage. And the role of having long-range vision is generally played in the community association industry by the reserve A professional. It's our job to see, make observations, and help clients begin preparing for things that are now far away. So let's talk about the goal. What are we trying to accomplish? Well, the job of the board member is to make those decisions that protect, preserve, and enhance the physical and financial assets of the association. No one expects board members to be experts in all the various subjects and disciplines, legal things, foreclosures, accounting things. Can they correct this? What about past period changes? The landscaper questions. No one's expecting the board members to be experts in all those fields. It's their job as board members to make the decisions that guide the association forward. Now, where does that authority come from? Very simply, it's the governing documents. Those governing documents define their roles and responsibilities. Someone needs to lead the association and make those decisions. It can't just be everything goes up for a vote. The board members make the decisions. It's their job, their legal responsibility. But remember, board members have limited experience. Sometimes they rotate in and out of being on the board, and mostly they're, I say this nicely, average homeowners. I was an average homeowner when I became a board member at the condominium where I first bought into decades ago. You're an average person. So how do you know enough to make the right kind of decisions? Well, you make them in good faith, in the best interest of the association, and they need to be characterized by due diligence. That means asking for guidance when you need help. Reach out to your manager, reach out to your attorney. This is how you and your association succeed where others fail. The ones that fail typically are board members guessing or board members unsure of what the next step is. There is no expectation that the average board member is an expert in all these different fields or elevator or roof maintenance, anything like that. So your job as a board member, and we have a heavy percentage of board members here, 50% of the people on this webinar are board members. It's their job to ask questions and rely on the subject matter experts who do know. Learn what plants are available and suitable for your front entryway by chatting with your landscaper. Learn how to proceed against delinquent homeowners by chatting with your attorney. So same way, you learn how to prepare for the inevitable failure of your roof by updating your reserve study. The answers are all out there. Give your association the advantage of knowing the answers. They are knowable. They're usually beyond the board member range, but you have the opportunity to ask questions. The homeowners are counting on you, board members, to run the association well. So ask the questions of the people who know. Make informed decisions, okay? But beyond decisions, you need to act. What am I going to do? Put it into action. Get help from your manager. Those future expenses are drawing closer every year. Tick-tock. You're on a timeline. Without acting, you and I know your paint will chip, the asphalt's going to develop potholes, the elevator will break down more frequently, and the roof will leak. We all know that. There's no doubt. And there's no need to wait until that inevitability actually happens. Your job is to protect, preserve, and enhance the association, not let it deteriorate under your watch because you failed to ask questions of the people who know the answers. So that's what I want to encourage you to do. Have the courage to ask the questions because the future is coming, and it's your job to have the results of an association that is sustainable, that's enjoyable to live in, with maximized property values. And at this point in time, I got to turn the microphone over to Mark. We'll spend a few minutes helping you prepare for the reserve projects in your future.
Thank you, Robert. If it's okay with you guys, I'm going to take us back to the idea of that forest, the image of the forest at your backyard, and the mountains in the distance. They're there, they're big. And remember, just because you can't see them clearly from your vantage point does not change the fact that they are there. So I think about, let's kind of expand this image a little bit, and we're flying, let's say, across the United States from San Francisco to New York, and there are obstacles in the way, like the Rocky Mountains. It's a lot of territory. You can't see where you're going from where you start, so you need some navigational help. You need to make sure you have enough fuel, and you need to start gaining altitude well in advance of the mountains in order to get safely over the pretty significant elevation. So those mountains are a significant obstacle. They're going to get very close, very fast at the airplane speeds, but you should be able to rely on your pilot, preparing in advance to smoothly gain the altitude as necessary to cross safely. This is my favorite slide in the presentation. It's a really great illustration of having to work fast to keep up. I think most of us have seen Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory, but I'll put the link in the clip on the outline so you can find that easily. The future is coming, and you need to keep up the pace in order to have success. Getting behind leads to chaos. It's pretty funny when it's Lucy. It's less funny when it's our own property. So getting behind means unpleasant special assessment in your community, and this sketch makes the point clear. Now, continuing along our trip, what's important in the community association world is that the board needs to appreciate that they are in the cockpit. I've seen many boards with the attitude that they are a passenger looking out the window from row 23. In reality, they are responsible for flying this plane. That's why so many associations are struggling. The board does not realize that they're flying the plane. They're in the back, living like a passenger. Fortunately, the board's not alone. You have management, you have other professionals like reserve study preparers that act kind of like air traffic control. We're here to help set up association leadership for success. If the board is not paying attention to their duties, if they're not planning in advance, or don't reach out for help, the association crashes into the mountain range of expenses, then special assess sometime. It's uncomfortable, everyone suffers, and that happens when the flight crew is just not doing their job. They're not flying the plane, and they're not getting regular and wise counsel from air traffic control. Okay, so we understand the metaphor at this point. Let's look at some different mountain ranges of expenses that boards need to face. Each association's mountain range of expenses is going to be unique. These are 30-year expense maps from some of our completed reserve studies that we're going to take a look at. We're going to see some of the different challenges facing different board members, and we're going to note how each will require some different behavior. You have to know your upcoming mountains. You have to plan for your particular mountain range of upcoming expenses. This association has some near-term expenses, and then another big peak in about 10 years, and then the largest big expense year, it's about 30 years away. This association has a significant climb in less than 10 years. The hope is that they're already at least halfway to financially prepared for this big expense. This association has their big expenses just over a year. Fortunately, they've hired us to help craft a plan. Unfortunately, they've ignored this upcoming project for the last 20 years. So our plan is going to be a significant special assessment. This association has a lot of expenses each year, with a good scatter of expenses through the years. They need to be regularly moving lots of cash into reserves in order to stay ahead of all these projects. They need to develop a war chest for that last 10 years. You can see now that it would get painful if they aren't preparing in advance. This chart looks scary, but really it's a lot of expenses just about every year. So again, just keep moving cash towards reserve. It almost never lets up. There's always some big reserve project coming or coming up on the next year. There's a different type of association, plenty of reserve expenses spread out throughout the years. The challenge at this association is that they've got the risk of becoming complacent. So they have some rest years and then big expenses, and then some rest years and then big expenses. But there's never any off season and there's never any rest. So those are the years that you prepare for the big expense years. Same lesson here, lots of peaks and valleys. The years with low reserve expenses are the years where it's important to prepare for the big expense years. If homeowners start seeing that they're putting a lot of money into reserves, they're not seeing a lot of projects done in the intervening years, they can get noisy, and it's on the board to explain what's happening. If a new board comes along and lowers the assessments, you just trade lower assessments for a big special assessment in the future. We're back to our airplane. Every board, every association, you have a unique mountain range, unique peaks and valleys of expenses. Remember, they're coming up fast. There's nothing you can do to slow them. There's nothing you can do to stop them. The deterioration is going to happen in your physical assets. Hire a reserve study professional to help you prepare. There's not really a good excuse to be surprised by a roof that's going to fail. It's on schedule. It has a budget. It's in plain sight. Get help to prepare years in advance and to be ready. How's my vision? We're going to spend a few more moments just following up with a slightly different illustration to talk about those future events more clearly, because I want you to be prepared. I want you to understand how significant the problem is and take it to heart. Also, these are all tools that you can use to communicate effectively to your homeowners and your other board members. Let's go back to where Robert started. We have a mid-rise condo building where, for the person who doesn't have as much experience, the person who goes in and out of the building, you can see the near-term projects, which we've highlighted in yellow. Trim, paint, carpet, asphalt. This is stuff that's obvious, that doesn't take a lot of imagination to figure out that this stuff is failing or not. So maybe think about it like an eye doctor, getting your vision checked. Big letters at the top show things that the homeowners and the board is capable of seeing. For this person, big near-term things are clear. Mid-range projects, like the things halfway down the chart, are a little bit fuzzy. Long-range projects are out of sight, far too distant to see. Or the mid-range project. A few years into the future, it does require some experience to spot the difference from when the asset was new and have ideas about how long it will last. So an experienced property manager or someone who's been on the board for a long period of time understands the mid-range projects and has some level of discernment about what's considered plainly obvious. The long-range projects, these take a very special skill or a background in the industry. But people with those skills and that experience are able to make good estimates on costs and time. Again, time marches on. The project is going to happen. They get closer every day. If you wait until you can see it clearly, it's like an elevator going out of service or the roof starting to leak, potholes in the asphalt. It's too late. You've waited too long. The time for planning is gone. The time for action has arrived. And if you're not ready, then it's going to be a painful process. The association is in trouble and property values are going to have an impact. It's the canary in the coal mine. The reserve study is a tool that can help you, just like miners use the canary as a tool to help them understand if they're running out of oxygen. The reserve study is a tool to help you understand how much money you need and to kind of see the future without having to be an expert. So we're back to our airplane. Remember, where you're piloting the association airplane into the future, but you don't have to do it alone. Use the team, use the resources at your disposal, and see what's ahead. Use your own early warning system. There are professionals standing by, just like an air traffic controller, to help the board successfully navigate forward. Robert, I'd like to turn it back over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Okay, now let's talk about what happens if the board doesn't plan ahead. And as a bonus, we'll also spend some time on what happens if the board does plan ahead. And let's start with what happens if you're not prepared, if you don't plan. Those mountains of expenses in your association in the future are coming. You're flying right towards them. We don't have control over time. The earth continues to spin and things get older every day. As a board member, if you're back in seat 23A on the plane minding your own business, that's the wrong place to be. Now, from my point of view, I recall Mad Magazine. It had a mascot and cover boy called Alfred E. Newman. His famous phrase was, "What? Me worry?" And it's funny because we all know it's silly to not prepare, walking foolishly forward, getting slammed or surprised by things that are obvious to many others, or obvious if you would have cared to open your eyes or look at the possibilities. And of course, if you don't, it's a train wreck. If you don't move your vehicle off the tracks, like happened here in this picture, you're going to get smashed. You only have so much time to act, or there's going to be a problem in your future. And in our industry, in the community association world, we call those bad things the D's. Higher costs due to when deferred maintenance causes a simple project to get much bigger in scope and more expensive. Disruption and distress due to special assessments. Declining property values. Owner distrust of the board and manager causing political disruption. General discouragement and disappointment among the owners because they don't have good leaders drawing the association forward. Why did I buy into this association? And the danger of litigation if and when some owners feel strongly enough about it that the board wasn't acting responsibly in accordance with the governing documents or state law, and they launch litigation. Or it just gets plain expensive. Now, from a reserve study provider's point of view, we see this from our perspective because we see associations that do and don't act like this. Okay, let's imagine a $250,000 roof project that happens every 15 years. If you set aside reserve funds over those 15 years and collect 4% interest, which is readily available nowadays, the owners, your homeowners, only need to pay about $183,000 of that $250,000 roof because the bank makes up the difference with interest over those 15 years. If you wait until the last minute and special assess, it's going to cost your homeowners $250,000. It's a lot more than $183,000. And then if you wait until the last minute and don't want to pass a special assessment, but want to take out a loan, at current market rates, a $250,000 roof is going to cost about $320,000 because of the interest you pay to the bank. So instead of getting money from the bank, all of a sudden you're paying money to the bank. And that's a big spread in cost. That's $137,000. That's a little over halfway of the total cost in the project itself. So the board's failure to plan ahead and pay the ongoing deterioration bill that happens every month ended up costing the homeowners $137,000 they didn't need to pay. And then remember, a special assessment isn't a good solution. It's disruptive, it's unexpected, and it's unfair, falling only on the shoulders of the people currently living at the association at the time of the expense. Remember that it's the board's job to protect, preserve, and enhance the association. A special assessment generally happens when the board wasn't being proactive and wasn't planning ahead, wasn't asking those questions we've been talking about earlier. And a special assessment takes time and in most cases relies on an owner vote of approval. It's never a sure thing. It's never a good idea to make an expensive emergency out of something that you could have and should have avoided if you would have planned ahead and again asked the right questions over the years and got your association set up for success. And for those of you thinking about a loan, in addition to it clearly being an expensive way to pay for predictable projects, remember that a loan requires you to qualify. It's no sure thing that an association in financial straits in need of a loan a loan will be able to qualify for that loan. And it takes too long to get a loan in order to quickly get the funds together to fix a leaky roof. You're going to have to pay a roofer right now for the roof leaks, and it takes a while. And remember that once you do get a loan, the banker is going to get involved with your association to ensure that you have sufficient cash so that they get paid back. They have leverage now that they've loaned you money. They have influence. And likely, they're going to insist on higher monthly assessments, which is likely the exact same solution you should have done years ago, which would have prevented this entire problem. And from a management point of view, loans make administering the association more complicated, and they also complicate sales and closings. So, like the other cartoon I showed you earlier, your association is a product of your choices. Portfolio managers in our audience know one or more associations like the Aspen Creek condos in the cartoon. They're disorganized, they're sloppy, mismanaged, they're not taking care of business. Some of you board members and homeowners have the challenge of living in an association just like Aspen Creek. So, knowing the challenges of upcoming expenses, what do the steps look like to prepare? It's actually pretty simple, really. Fund your reserves as needed. That requires some courage to raise assessments. Spend reserves on caring for the property, not letting it deteriorate. Updating your reserve study regularly to get fresh planning information. And asking questions and then listening to your advisors. Just like the flight crews listen to the control tower. So, why prepare? Because the mountains are coming. Deterioration is real. Mother Nature and Father Time don't care that your budget is tight. They hear that all across the country. We can't afford it. We don't think our homeowners will support it. Well, remember, all your assets are getting older and wearing out every day. That deterioration is real. And it looks just like Lucy and Ethel in that Chocolate Factory comedy sketch that Mark showed or told you about. You need to work fast to keep up, or you're going to have a crisis on your hands. Another thing to think about, when I travel and stay in hotels or jump into a rental car at the airport, I never worry about them assessing me a fee for a new hallway carpet, or to buy new tires, or to get an oil change when I return the car. Those companies build those costs right into the daily usage fee. So it's normal across the country. We're encouraging associations to build these costs right into the monthly assessments so everyone pays their fair share. Now, there's an extra benefit here. At an association, when you build those costs into the monthly assessments, the funds are there in the future when you need them. And from our study about condo home values compared to reserve fund strength, we learned that home values in associations with a strong reserve fund were significantly higher, 12.6% higher to be exact. Curb appeal is real. A strong reserve fund that provides for the timely care of the property pays for itself in thousands of dollars in higher home values. So you can compare the maybe $50 more a month that you need to put into reserves, or the $100 more a month that you need to put into reserves, compared to thousands of dollars in higher home values. Responsible reserve planning pays for itself. Okay, and with that, let me summarize our time together and bring this program to a close. As a board member, remember, you're in the cockpit. You're the flight crew. The mountains are ahead. Mark showed that every association has its own different set of upcoming expenses or mountains. Air traffic control knows how high those mountains are, where they are, where you are relative to them. You're reckless if you're not gripping the controls tight and getting regular updates from air traffic control on how you're doing. And if you're back in seat 23A, everyone on board that aircraft is going to suffer a bumpy or dangerous flight. Remember, it's a multi-year journey for associations as they go into the future. The mountains are scattered out. You generally don't have to face them all at once. And most associations have the speed and time to prepare in advance if they choose to do so. And we want to encourage you to choose to do so. So, For board members in the audience, we encourage you to listen to your manager. Reach out to get help from your other professionals. If you're a manager, be that voice of experience to your board clients and lean on your reserve study professional for the long-time projects who know the terrain and know that long-term vision and can see things clearly to help you arrive safely in your journey to the future. But remember, it's the board who's up in the cockpit who flies the plane. It's your association. Lead it well. Those upcoming expenses are real and they take time to prepare. If you ignore them until they're right in front of you, you've created your own emergency. All right, for any of you who need some reserve study assistance at your association who are looking for an air traffic controller, contact us directly through our website. We're at the top right corner of reservestudy.com. You can get a no-obligation reserve study proposal for your association. And you can find other helpful resources via articles, other recorded webinar materials, anything like that, or you can simply scroll to the bottom of any page, sign up for our email list to get notified of future programs like this. Or you can search for one of our videos on YouTube, where this one will be posted, as Paige mentioned, in about a week. Subscribe to our channel so you'll learn of all the new videos that hit and all the free learning resources that you can enjoy, help you to fly the plane, and you can share with other managers or board members. And also to help you in the challenging budget process, we have this new tool that we added for our clients back in 2020 called UPlanet. It's our online reserve calculator. It's kind of like a flight simulator program where you can take your reserve study and start testing all your what-if ideas. What happens if I move this expense out? What happens if we lower our reserve transfers? What happens if we get more or less interest? Things like that. It allows you to get your fingers into it and customize the plan for your association. And the great thing is that access to UPlanet for your budget season comes free with every one of our professionally prepared reserve studies. Now, for those of you who are readers, you can order a copy of our desktop reference, Understanding Reserves, to help you remember basic reserve planning concepts. I'll put a link in the outline so you can download Chapter 1 for free to see what it's like. And if you like it, order it on Amazon. And another great resource we have for you as we're trying to encourage you to get outside input is a weekly 30-minute podcast for boards called HOA Insights, Common Sense for Common Areas. New episodes drop every Monday. It's weekly, it's regular, and it's designed to encourage and equip boards to have more success at their association. Topics covered are things like insurance, board transitions, minute taking, understanding financials, current events, and 1 week a month, we feature the story of a board hero, and you can see what or hear what they've been doing at their association. And with that, I'll turn the microphone over to Paige. We'll coordinate our Q&A time together.